Okay, today we're going to talk about the Telesis 470 controller. You're looking at the screen, you've got F1, F2, there's function keys to navigate the tree. I'm in operator mode right now. I'm offline and my pattern is untitled. So I can do a file, I can do an open. If I open, I've got a bunch of different patterns here. Under edit, I really can't do anything in operator and edit. Under machine, I'm going to cause the machine to go online or offline. I can drive it to the park position. I can tell it to go or do a dry run, which is go through the marking cycle but don't throw the pin. So if I go to online, I'm going to hit F1, online. You can hear it went online. It goes off of home and back to home to say, yes, I'm 0, 0. Under marker, there's not much you can do here. And then under setup, you've got level and query text. Let's talk about level. Level is supervisor, operator, and designer. I'm going to go to supervisor. There is no password, so I'm going to hit F1. And now I'm in supervisor, I'm online, and I'm untitled. So really what you want to do now that you're in supervisor, you can do a save, save as, test, all kinds of stuff. Let's talk about programming. With no lines, I'm going to hit edit. And I'm going to add a tool. I hit F1. I can add a tool or a command. If the command would be go to, pause, input, that type of thing. If I go to edit F1, the tool is, hey, text tool, arc tool, that type of thing. Let's do a text tool, F1. So if I hit F1, I've got text line 1. Now you can see I've got here, I'm on text, and then I've got font, tool, and user. There's a page down button on the bottom right corner of the keyboard that'll make you go from text to font to tool and then back up. Under the text, I can type 1, 2, 3, or I can put a %Y. That would be a wildcard or a flag for the year. This system can automatically date code, time, serialize, Julian date, all that. So right now I'd have 1, 2, 3, and then 20 for the year. And if I put YY, it'd be 2022. You'd get a 4-digit year. Your X and Y is where your text is located. I can type in 5 and then come down here and go to 5 and go to 15. Or what I can do is there's a button that's got 4 arrows on it. If I hit that button, I'm actually in jog mode. And I'm going to jog the unit into where a point. And I'm going to call out this point. This point could be the center, or it could be the left center. We're going to type in this point 2015, hit accept. 2015 comes in here. And what you can do is you can say that's the center top or the center middle. So if you have square brackets like you've got here, you can see that you type information in. If you have greater or less than brackets, you actually will hit the enter key and actually it'll toggle through the options. So middle, bottom, top. So I'm going to do the center middle is 20.3, 15.2. I'm going to go down and I'm going to say, okay, what font? I've got 5x7, 11x16. I can do user fonts. Let's start with 5x7. And then you have your height, your width, and your pitch. If I type in 3 and hit enter, it'll automatically update to a 5x7, which means the relationship from height to width is 5x7. Hit enter, it goes 5, 1.99, and 3. I can also override this and go, hey, I want my width to be 1.5 and my spacing to be 2. Let me go back onto here. Let me go down. I'm going to hit the tab key. And you can either up and down or tab in between these. So my pitch is from the start of character 1 to the start of character 2. Under tool, I can do density. My density is if I'm in continuous, it says 39 dots per inch, and it's printable. I'm going to go back up. If I'm dot, I can do 5x7 dots. If I'm in continuous, that's where I use this density. Last thing is user, title, user text, clear user. Not really something that's used on an ongoing basis, but if you wanted to clear this after every print, you could, for example. Hit accept, and then I go out and I've got this text line. If I want to go back into it, I hit enter, and I'm back in. line 1. Now I can do the same thing for line 2, F2, F1, F1. Now I'm going to just hit escape, and you got line 2. So this is how you would do it. Now if I go to my machine and I go to go, F4, you can hear that it's running. I've got no air set up, but it's running the unit. And let me go back to operator, because in supervisor you can see all this data. In operator, I'm going to go back to operator. All you're going to be able to see is, hey, 1, 2, 3, 20. That's the year, the 20 is the year, and 1, 2, 3 is what I typed in. That's a very quick overview. The next part of this video is going to be talking about setup. Once you've set up your lines, I'm going to go back to level and go to supervisor again. Now I go to setup, and I've got my properties, I've got a bunch of stuff. My design, for example, if I hit F3, it says, hey, what do I want my units to be, English or metric, okay? User means I can set up a user shift or a user. So instead of doing January, February, March, if I want the month to be J for January, you've got a single digit per month. That's something that the user can program. Same with the year, same with the month, and same with the hour. So if you have a special format you want to embed in here, you can do that. And then if you wanted the month, you'd put %M, and that would be the user month, and then they would use this, okay? Under design, again, setup and properties actually, here's where you can do the properties of the marker. You can do startup properties. Properties of the marker are going to be, hey, what is your head? Do you want a home, your speeds, that type of thing. As far as your pin, you're going to have your pin, what pin it is, how far you're stroking out, and your pin rate return is how quickly you want this to return. This is if you're really in a very critical mark and you want to either be super fast or super accurate, you can adjust these. If not, there's not a lot, to do here. If I go to startup, F2, this is going to say, hey, on startup, what do I want to happen? I want to load a pattern called test. I want it to go online. The keyboard display, and in the mode I want to be normal, and I want the mode to be supervisor. If I wanted it to go into not supervisor, but I wanted it to go into operator, hit the enter key, and it would go to operator, that type of thing. So here's how you would set that up. You can also set up your host, which is if you're pushing and pulling data, here's a way to do it via the COM port. We can also do this via the Ethernet, which is F5 over here. You can see you can set up your local and your remote, that type of thing. And then you've got your clock and your passwords. Your clock is, hey, I'm going to type in the day and time. And then your passwords, which right now are blank, you can physically type in here. So that's a really, really quick on setup. I'm going to go over to file properties because that's another area. Here's where you have your serial number data. So lower is 1, upper is 1, and the mode is to wrap. This is a %S, tells you can write a serial number, and here's where those are done. In Park, it says, hey, where do I want this thing to wait in between marks? Here's your defaults. When I add a pattern, this is the size and that type of thing. Instructions is a place where I can type in a note in case when I load this program, you could put down, please remember to use yellow clamp for this part, that type of thing. So in essence, it's real simple. Use the function keys down here, and it's a pretty user-friendly device. Okay, this time we're going to talk about a 2D matrix. A lot of people need to put a barcode on their part, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Edit and Tool, and this time we're going to type F4, which is 2D matrix, and it's very similar. I can type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can put in %Y again. I can put in %1 equals. And what that means is, hey, whatever's in line 1, I'm just going to do that. Whatever's in line 1, I want to be in the barcode. And that way you can write to line 1, and then it can be put in the barcode. The same thing here, you can jog it around. And you can say, hey, you know what, I want this piece to be 10.117.7. Again, the way you hit the jog is on the keyboard in the bottom right, there's a key that's got 4 arrows. When you hit that, you go to this screen called jog, accept. You just called out a point of 10.117.7, and I want to make this my center middle point. And if you wanted to put an angle of 90 degrees, you could do that type of thing. I'm not going to do that right now. So that's the first piece. If I hit the page down, and again, the page down is a key on the right side of the keyboard. It's a page with an arrow down. It's going to say what format, and the format's going to be either alphanumeric or ASCII, 8-bit, or just numeric. Typically, alphanumeric plus means it's the alphabet and the numbers, and there's extra characters. If you just want numeric, you do numeric. So the method of sizing, of creating this, is by either using the spacing, which the spacing here is at 0.5, so that means your dots are going to be 0.5 apart. Or if I hit enter, I can do size, which means I'm going to type in 10 millimeters. So if I hit size here, that means that I'm going to default to the size of the matrix is going to be 10 millimeters. That's the height and the width. If I do spacing, it's going to say, hey, I want this spacing to have every 0.5 millimeter. So it's one or the other. I typically like size because I can control the size. And what you're going to want is when you lay the dots, you don't want the dots touching, but you want them close to touching. So if I go down here and I can do the code, what is the code? It can be square, or I can call out different rectangles. So this is a 12 by 26. That means 12 rows by 26. If I do square, let me just go back to square. I go down here and I can do an automatic, which means it'll automatically choose how many rows and columns, or I can force it to be a 10 by 10. So that means I'm going to have 10 rows and 10 columns of dots that are 10 millimeters high. That means that I'm going to have a dot every millimeter. If I do 14 by 14, that means I'm going to have 14 rows and 14 columns, and they're all going to fit in that 10 millimeter. So the reason you would choose 14 by 14 is you get to put more data as that matrix gets bigger. A 10 by 10 matrix might be able to do 8 characters. A 14 by 14 might be able to do 16 characters. And a 16 by 16 may be able to do 24 characters. So based on how many characters you need, you got to change this. Or if you go to auto, and I'm going to go wrap all the way around. If I go back to auto, it'll choose for you. The detriment there is that if you go from 8 digits to 12 digits, your code is going to automatically go from a 10 by 10 to a different rows and columns. Typically, you want to lock this at some piece. I'm going to go down, and we can mark bidirectional, which means we mark to the right, then we mark back to the left. And I can turn that on and off. And overshoot means that when I'm done with a dot, how many pulses past do I want to go? And here's my speed rate. And again, because we have greater than, less than here, you can see I just hit the enter key and I can type in how fast my speed rate is. I'm going to hit down again, and you've got your same title and your stuff, and the tool is usable. If you can see on this guy, I've got this arrow here, and that arrow indicates that there's more pages. Okay, so that's how you would do a 2D matrix. Now if I hit print, there's the alphanumeric, and you can hear it going and doing the 2D matrix. And that's pretty much how you would set that up. Now I'm going to go back, and when it's done, change my level to operator, and you can see that my text and my 2D matrix have the exact same piece in it, because if I go into my level and I go back to supervisor, there is none. I've got a %1 equals. So whatever's in line 1 is going to be in the data matrix.